Bill, you had a question.
Mine has to do with what, I don't know anything about the program yet, I've heard a little bit, but
Yeah.
what is the social situation or contradiction or need that this program is responding to, and how is it doing that? How's it going?
Okay, another question.
Yeah.
What were the partnerships involved that you worked with in the service learning program?
Okay.
What partnerships?
Yeah, what were your partnerships?
Okay, I have room for one more question. The rule is when you get to the bottom of the page, that's it.
That's right, unless you cross one off.
Is that it? Okay.
You're at the bottom of your page.
All right. Great. Well, let's begin at the top with a little bit of a historical overview. And certainly we could also wrap that into the Books to the Past, because clearly, you know, the memory that is alive in many of us, that our work in Chicago at least, if not in Texas, began with the university students. And so thinking back to, you know, my early experience with the Order and the Institute, of course, was, working with college students, university and college students. And certainly on the west side in the 60s and even into the early 70s, we had influxes of university students frequently. I can remember probably between 65 and 68 that there were colleagues who, it seemed like every weekend, brought in a whole load of university students to do RS1 or CS1 or one other of the courses. And so in terms of the shoulders we stand on, clearly we have a history of being rooted in the academy, or at least, you know, being in dialogue with the academy in shaping our work. And so the service learning program that we've designed in the last couple of years is kind of a reinvigoration or a revisitation or a resurrection of work that has always characterized the Ecumenical Institute ICA's programming. So in terms of the most recent history, Terry contacted me in summer of 2010 and asked if I'd be interested in helping the ICA shape a new service learning program. And for me, the response was immediate. It instantly clicked. I had been doing a lot of work with higher education and training and consultation for a number of years, and so was very interested in that. And spent a lot of time in fall of 2010 here at 4750. And I would come and spend 2 weeks here and then go back to St. Paul and spend 2 weeks in St. Paul. So kind of a rhythm, so I could do both my, both the arenas of work that I was involved in. And we began our dipping into the service learning arena in fall of 2010 with a visit from Lindsey Wilson College, a small Methodist college in Kentucky. We did a week of programming with them that was a wedded to programming that they were doing. And we had a lot of learnings, but that sort of got us on the road, so to speak. And so we stepped back and then began to do a lot more thoughtful design and preparation. And that led to, in 2011, our initial 3-week intensive service learning program that was done with a small group of students from Oklahoma City University. We wove in a couple of young men on our staff, and there was one faculty member from Oklahoma City University. And that was also the initiation of the Accelerate 77 process, because the civic engagement that the students from Oklahoma City did was to initiate the neighborhood research that eventually, was the fruition of which was the September 15th event last year. And so then we followed that up by doing some thinking about an even expanded version of the 3-week program, and we created a 6-week design that we've yet to test, that we're really interested in getting on the road. And that prepared the way for the work that we did last summer, where we had 40 interns come in and spend 10 weeks with us. The first 3 weeks of the 10 weeks, we pulled 15 of them aside and used our 3-week design that we had piloted the summer before. We used that 3-week design to do leadership training with a group of 15. And then they provided the leadership for the remaining 40 interns that spent the next 7 weeks with us. And as you know, the interns were key to really accelerating the neighborhood research process that identified the between 800 and 900 local initiatives that we found in the city of Chicago.
So the 40 interns were here for how long again?
They were here for a total of 10 weeks.
10 weeks.
The first 3 weeks there was a group of 15 that we trained as the leadership. The next 7 weeks then were the remainder of the 40 interns. And one of the things we learned is that we could take our service learning designs and flex them according to, you know, sort of what the situation required. And so with the interns, we basically, they were unpaid interns, as I'm sure you know. And all we provided them was lunch and coffee and a simple continental breakfast when they'd show up in the morning. But we did that on a shoestring. But nonetheless,
And the we included
Yeah.
also guides.
Yeah.
Yes.
Guides,
Yes,
not only
indeed.
your
yes, indeed.
immediate staff.
Not just the staff here, but we also had a number of, many of you were present in the internship program last summer. And so what's happened most recently in the service learning arena for us, once we got past the September event and Accelerate 77 began to kick into what they call the third phase, then we began to focus more on our 6 weeks program and make contacts with universities and colleges around the nation. We had a lot of learnings there. We were depending on Oklahoma City University to still deliver sort of the core students for our program. We have a program on the books for July and June of this summer. It's an unknown right now whether that's really going to happen because recruitment has been very slow for that. And a number of reasons. I think we have a number of learnings there. I'll come back to those in a short time. But one of the things we're doing right now that's really kind of interesting and maybe has opened a new door for us is we're doing a 6-week series with a group of French business students that are students in a business school in Paris. And that business school has a branch in Chicago. And so these students have come over for basically several weeks to do a series of classes, 5 to 7 classes in Chicago. Most of them come to work on their English in addition to learning stuff around business. And so we were asked to do a 6 weeks course with them on social entrepreneurship. And so what we've done is adapted our 3 academic modules that I'll go more into depth with you in a few minutes. We've adapted our 3 academic modules to be the content of that social entrepreneurship course. And Doug Druckenmiller is following up on this by meeting with the folks in charge of the program in Paris. And his initial conversations with them have discovered some interest in maybe doing something more intensive and residential in the fall. That remains to be seen whether that'll come into being, but there's the possibility we could do a 6 weeks program in the fall that's residential with business students from Paris. If we did that, then we take the 6 weeks design that we currently have and adapt it, and we see where that takes us in terms of the latest wrinkle of our service learning work.
How did that get initiated?
Well, Terry, we were contacted by the program,
Okay.
by the Chicago office of the program, and Terry and Seva had a conversation with the director of the program. And the more they talked about the work that we were doing as service learning, the more interested they became, which kind of knocked our socks off, so to speak. Who would have thought that business programs would be interested in our service learning work, but they wanted to frame it as social entrepreneurship. And so our work has been to shift how students understand entrepreneurship so that they understand entrepreneurship as being socially responsive as opposed to being simply opportunistic, looking for opportunities for turning a buck. And so we've used our service learning curriculum to help us do that. So that's a thumbnail sketch of the recent history of our service learning programming. What I'd like to do now is to share with you a picture of the program so that we have something more concrete to talk about. And I'll share with you some work that Saba did yesterday evening late. And so she wants you to know this was done late, and so it's a little rough. And I've noticed that my printer wouldn't even print the bottom line for some reason. It was probably too close to the edge of the paper. But anyway, this has the basics on it, and let me keep one. Some interesting graphics as well. And this little 4-pager, 5-pager also outlines in broad brushstrokes the 3-week design. Now then I also want to share with you a 2-pager, back to front, that we've used more broadly to not quite as imaginal in terms of imagery, but the content is a helpful summary of the 3 and 6 week programs without any of the design of the programs themselves. We also developed a 1-pager that we've been using with Oklahoma City University that simply is out to hook college students' interests. And we were down at Oklahoma City University back in March, early March, to be a part of the annual OICOS conference, and had the opportunity to meet with a few students, and found that there was a lot of interest in the 6 weeks program, but I think probably just hadn't, we didn't have really a champion on campus who was pressing this. And one of our learnings has been that because we're new folks on the block in a very large universe, service learning, that you've got to have a champion on campus that is constantly sort of promoting, the work. Without that, there's too much going on, and there's, you're just sort of dependent upon whims, so to speak. I think that's been one of our learnings. And we have neither the money or the staff to do the kind of traveling around that would be required for our presence on campus to do the recruiting for this program. And so lacking champions on campus, we've got a real contradiction or challenge right now in terms of getting the word out. Our 5-year picture is that in 5 years we have a profile and a reputation in higher education in the service learning arena. And that includes even being mentioned in journals. But we've got some work to do for that to happen in the next 5 years. Now the 5-pager that I handed out has the first page has I think a very helpful description, overall description of the program. We use the OICOS Scholars Curriculum at Oklahoma City University as the basis for designing our academic curriculum. And then one of the values that we wanted to connect to that was the value of 2 hours spent in civic engagement for every hour spent in, relatively speaking, classroom academic work. And then all of that happens in the envelope of intentional community life. So the students are here experiencing a learning community while they do integrated academic work and purposeful civic engagement. So community life, integrated academics, and purposeful civic engagement are the 3 dimensions of the program. And the academics includes contextual curriculum and methods curriculum. This graphic here shows the methods curriculum distinct. It's a very interesting way of imagining it. But we see the methods and the contextual curriculum together as the academic work that they do. One of the things that we concluded, based on simply what goes on in universities these days, is that the integrated business is really important. The universities tend to be very siloed institutions, even in terms of curricula. And so we were interested not necessarily